Draft Day, your one-stop shop for all things NFL draft, college football, and NFL talk. We show of the 2022 new year. Happy New Year to everyone that is watching the best draft show out there, Destination Draft Day. Nick Durst over here, Michael Rochman right here, myself. And, we are excited for what 2022 has yet to bring for you who really.
Yeah, Michael, just want to wish everybody a happy new year. First show of the year. Very excited about that. Um, we're in a good spot here at football with the playoffs going on, and it's been a long season. And for me, Michael, I'm just like I had enough. Like I wish the season was over at this point. This extra week of the regular season is just killing me. So week 18, it's too much for me. Well, how do you feel about week 18?
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these matchups and I'm excited for it, but at the same time, I do really appreciate the 16 game season that we had, week 18, making it extremely intense. I'm kind of worried about what happens in terms of blowback from the media if we see some, week 18 injury and how the NFL will get criticized for it heavily. There's a lot of still left to be accomplished, though. There's some teams that are very much in the hunt for the playoffs. Chargers Raiders probably going to be the late night game. I think it was already announced possibly that would be the Sunday night game, and that's going to be one that everyone's watching. But also just some other major games, and some maybe not even as much for record, but potential final games such as Seattle playing the Cardinals in what could be Russell Wilson's last game as a Seahawk.
Yeah, so crazy games yesterday. Well, I think we'll start with the greatness of Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, who do what they always do best, and that is beat the Jets. Unbelievable job there to come back. And, as soon as the Patriots got that ball, I was there. I knew they were going to win the game. Gronkowski had 7 catches. Tom Brady was incredible. And the big story from the game is Antonio Brown, who was mere feet away from me, quitting on his team, and I don't think we're going to see him play in the NFL ever again.
Yeah, it's hard to see Antonio Brown finding his way back onto an NFL roster. It felt like Tampa Bay was sort of the not last place that he would ever be, but it was just the kind of final straw type opportunity. And if he blew it, then there was most likely not going to be another chance. And he sort of blew it. You don't know what he's going through. You aren't sure what the situation was that made it unfold, but it's something that you can't react to like that. And a lot of teams are already out on Antonio Brown possibly ever being on their roster, but a lot of the teams that were remaining maybe interested in him later down the road are very much likely out on him now. Some of the rumors I heard was that he told Arians he was too sore to go back in, so Arians told him he was done for the day, and he forgot there was a week 18, and so he got pissed off, thinking that he was going to miss out on his bonus money. Again, that's just speculation that I've heard. I'm not certain on the validity of it, but just, you can't make mistakes like this, and this is something that, too much media attention would surround him if he were to go to another team. Too much chaos has kind of already unfolded around him just throughout the course of the season and throughout the course of these past 2 years. I mean, the timeline of the Antonio Brown downward slope was he didn't like his helmet. He was on the Raiders about to be this huge weapon for Derek Carr, and he wasn't showing up to training camp because he wanted to find this new helmet. Wasn't doing it for him, so he wanted to find a helmet similar to his old helmet that the NFL would approve. And it just seems like everything snowballed into, leaving the Raiders, going to the Patriots, leaving the Patriots, going to the Bucks, now leaving the Bucks. And it's crazy to see because this is a Hall of Fame talent, one of the greatest of all time at wide receiver. But, there's so much off the field that we could see him never truly get the credit in terms of Hall of Fame induction. We could truly see him kind of lose the appeal of the all-time wide receiver conversation because of, how poorly it ended. And you don't want that for your legacy.
Yeah, and you have to wonder if maybe CTE or something comes into play here. It's very sad, and we'll see how this plays out. But for the Bucks on the field, what does this do for them, Michael? Are they going to be able to compete here in the NFC in the playoffs to get through it without Brown? Because I think if you just stick to the game plan from yesterday, which is let's throw it to Gronkowski and let's throw it to Evans, I think this should be okay. And is Fournette going to come back? It seems like maybe he's going to come back, maybe he's not. So, I mean, that might be the key. Le'Veon Bell's pretty much done at this point. So we'll see what kind of game plan they go to. But what do you think is realistic here for the Buccaneers going into the playoffs?
Yeah, if you're the Buccaneers, I think you got to go bully ball. I mean, you have Mike Evans at wide receiver, and then you have a lot of, differing options, but no one that really stands out with Godwin out, Antonio Brown now cut. But you have three tight ends that I think are starting quality tight ends in the NFL. OJ Howard is probably the lowest on that totem pole, but still very serviceable type guy, can be a great tight end three. Cameron Brate has proved to kind of step up when Gronk is injured. And you still have Gronk, who, when he's healthy, he's one of the best tight ends in football. So I think you got to look at a lot of two tight end, three tight end looks. Obviously, Mike Evans is going to be a great wide receiver on the outside, but the question is who's going to really kind of be that next receiver in line. And I think the big thing is get all three tight ends out there as often as possible, run the ball a lot. Brady's going to be smart. He's going to make great plays, but you got to find ways to put out the best possible 11. And I think right now with the state of the wide receiver unit, you got to look at your tight end unit to kind of overtake your wide receivers right now.
Yeah, they might go heavy on the tight end, so we'll see there. I thought Zach Wilson played great yesterday. He had a really good game. I'm hoping we're going to see him on Rochman's Rookies of the Week. I'm not sure. We'll build the suspense here and see what happens. Maybe he's going to make it. Maybe he's not. So we'll see. But I thought he really had a good game. What do you think about Wilson since he's come back from injury here in his progression? Because I think it's pretty clear he's having at least the second best season of all rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah, he's played well, and I think he's shown a lot of promise as a QB. One of the biggest things that happens for QBs that are kind of in a poor situation is we see them sort of struggle to kind of get going because of the supporting cast. But Zach Wilson has really kind of avoided mistakes, and that's huge for a young quarterback's confidence. Started out the season with so many interceptions that it was ridiculous. I think he had, let's see, I'm going to pull it up actually. So he had 9 interceptions in the first 5 games. And now with the past games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, he's only thrown 2. So that's tremendous work. Hasn't thrown an interception in the past 4 games. Definitely has made major strides in terms of just avoiding turnovers, avoiding issues. He works a little bit as a runner. He adds that to his game. He can extend plays pretty well. He throws with different arm angles that really helps. But, yeah, I mean, he's made the necessary strides. He's made the necessary motions to kind of instill confidence to Jets fans and just NFL people who are watching him that he could very well be the future of this organization. And I think, with a good coach like Saleh, with a good GM like Douglas, the pieces should soon fall in line to where the Jets have a supporting cast to provide to this QB, and we'll see him have a successful career.
Yeah, I think he's got all the tools. The game ended where the question, like, they had him on a QB sneak from 2 yards out, which made no sense. I think it was something was botched there, but the Jets should have won that game. All right, let's move on to another game which had huge implications. And as I projected on other platforms, the Bengals were going to beat the Chiefs. I was not surprised, but what a day for Jamar Chase, and what a 2-week span for Joe Burrow, going back-to-back weeks over 400 yards with 0 interceptions, many touchdowns. Michael, what do you think about these Bengals going into the playoffs here? And also, I think we got to be talking about Joe Burrow next season as an MVP candidate.
Yeah, I was talking about it with friends, and I'm maybe not in on the Bengals right away, but I think next year they're probably going to be a team that I heavily consider to potentially win the AFC. Great foundational pieces. I really like Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase in that wide receiver unit. Joe Burrow, obviously is making it work extremely well. There's a lot of talent on this team, and I think as long as they continue to just kind of add great pieces. Trey Hendrickson and Chidobe Awuzie were amazing additions in the offseason and really have done tremendous work for this defense. There's still a little bit that needs to be done. I think they need to be a little bit better in terms of run defense. I think they need to add a few more pieces in this draft, maybe solidify the offensive line a little bit more, but there's plenty of promise on this team. And I think right now, the turnaround that the Bengals have had is just tremendous work by Zach Taylor, by the rest of this coaching staff. And I think the Bengals are a team that in time they should be able to really contend. And we'll see if it converts into a Super Bowl. It's a very hard thing to accomplish, but they have the talent.
Yeah, Michael, very excited about them going into the playoffs here. Watch them happen. And then the Titans, they get their big win. The Dolphins, it looks like they're done now. Good run for them. But the Titans win the game. Maybe Derrick Henry's come back for the playoffs, but Michael, the Titans are going to have the 1 seed, so it's certainly going to help them big time if they want to hope of getting Derrick Henry back to make an impact in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it multiple playoff runs in a row where Derrick Henry is just nuts and he's impossible to bring down. I mean, we see that in the regular season as well, but when you're going against some of these playoff teams and they are struggling to look like a JV football team against a guy like Derrick Henry, it adds a tremendous benefit. Ryan Tannehill obviously has kind of righted the ship while Derrick Henry's been out. He's been able to be serviceable at QB, but I think the big thing for Tennessee is they've kind of done the necessary work with such a limited budget to fix up the defense, and it's really paid off in tremendous ways. They've got a very strong front seven. Their cornerback unit has definitely made its improvements. Kevin Byard has kind of bounced back from what had been some down play. There's plenty of potential for this Titans team to get through the AFC and potentially be the team that represents the AFC whenever it comes to the Super Bowl. That 1 seed still very much in play. I think they're probably going to get it, assuming they beat the Texans. But it's a very wide open field in terms of the AFC. And if you told me that Titans were the team to come out, I wouldn't be shocked by it. I think they have enough talent to where it's very believable, especially if they can get healthy.
Well, Michael, right now, if I had to pick a team to go to the AFC, I'm going to stick with the team I picked before the season, the team with all the momentum right now. That's the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, very poor game passing, 3 interceptions, made up for it on the ground, though. 2 touchdowns, 81 yards rushing. And the Bills decided to run the ball, and Devin Singletary had 2 touchdowns at 110 yards, and the defense looked fantastic. I think the Bills are going to be a very, very tough out for any team in the playoffs, and I think they match up very well with the Chiefs. We'd probably see the Bills and the Chiefs squaring off in the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the Bills have just as good a shot as anyone. And I mean, you look around at what Josh Allen can do at any moment in a game, and that really kind of restricts a defense, especially one that is trying to take away the running ability of a Josh Allen while still having to take away the deep threat ability of someone like Stephon Diggs. So that's huge and really just a complete game changer for a lot of teams to have to deal with. And that's where the Bills' advantage is. Can Josh Allen really kind of play at an elite level that he's played in the regular season to where the Bills can be a contender? I think there is plenty of talent on this defense that they're going to be in any game. And Sean McDermott, one of the better coaches in the NFL, I really love the work that he's done in Buffalo. Brian Daboll, one of the best offensive coordinators. I think he's going to be a guy that ends up getting a head coaching job this offseason. There's a lot of momentum for Buffalo. You said it. And they still got to win the division, obviously. But I think regardless of whether they end up as a 3-4 seed or end up as a wild card team, they're still very much a contender and probably a team that no one wants to face up with in the playoff.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So the Patriots, they clinched the playoffs. And you mentioned, of course, next week, the huge game with the Chargers and the Raiders, where the winner of that is likely going to the playoffs. Big loss by the Colts. Everyone said, oh, they're the best team right now. They're rolling. But they dropped the game. And when you look at it, it shouldn't have been that surprising because the Raiders, Michael, they've done this all season. When you think they're going to lose, they win. And when you think they're going to definitely win, they don't show up. So what are your thoughts on the AFC playoff picture there for the wild card teams? Because we know the Patriots are the first wild card, but the rest will be unfolding next week.
Yeah, the Raiders are probably like the biggest question mark of the NFL this year. I mean, they'll go out and play some of the best football against some of the top teams in the NFL, and then they'll go and lose to teams that they had no business losing to. I mean, they lost 20-9 to the Bears. They lost 23-16 against the Giants. When the Bengals were still kind of a question mark of a team, they lost 32-13, got absolutely blown out. I mean, they got blown out by the Chiefs. They lost to Washington. These are games where maybe they shouldn't have won, but they should have at least made it a lot closer. And then they go out and they beat teams like Cleveland, Dallas. They go out and beat the Colts just last week, who are one of the hottest teams in football. They beat the Ravens on the season opener. I don't understand the Raiders, but I do think that the talent is absolutely there. Tremendous props to a guy like Derek Carr, who has put together a pretty good season, all things considered. You look at guys like Hunter Renfrow, who have really kind of stepped up in the wake of losing Waller to injury, losing Ruggs to off-field stuff, and he's put together a tremendous season. Going to have 100 catches, most likely. He's at 99 right now, so I assume he gets one more. The defense has really kind of made necessary strides. Denzel Perryman, a veteran addition that a lot of people probably didn't really take much notice of. He's been absolutely phenomenal for the Raiders this year. And then, just finding ways to get pressure from this defense. They added Ngakoue. Max Crosby early in the season was absolutely dynamite, and they had to adjust for that in terms of offenses. You look at Quentin Jefferson, Solomon Thomas, they've been able to contribute in small roles, and they're really rotating a lot throughout the season. They've been able to kind of create a defense in what was a season where they needed to have a defense. That was the big thing coming into the season was there's talent, but is the Raiders defense going to be able to compete? And I mean, they still have times where they come out flat. It's still a bit inconsistent, but they've had their moments, and these past few weeks, they've actually kind of bounced back from this Chiefs performance and really put up some great games. Yeah. And, that's exactly how you want to be as a team. If you're fighting for a playoff spot, you want to have that momentum being built right before you get in, and now they just have one more game until they can really make it official that they're in the playoffs.
So, Michael, do you think Rich Bisaccia is 100% coming back as the head coach next season? Is he going to get a deal as the head coach?
It's tough. I think that if they make playoffs, I could see him getting another year, probably longer, obviously, if they make it. But ultimately, I think Todd Bowles is a perfect fit for what Las Vegas needs. I think he would add a tremendous addition to this defense that's necessary, get them a little bit more consistent. I think that he would instill culture, success, and really kind of bring a lot of influence that he had at Tampa Bay to this Las Vegas team, and it would be huge. But just strictly on what the Raiders have done, I think it really comes down to this final game. If they're able to win against the Chargers, make playoffs, then I could see Bisaccia getting the job for at least another season. But really, I think it's very much up in the air. I wouldn't be surprised if they look at the pool of talent and find a new head coach, regardless of what the finishing touches are for the season.
I was hoping that if Arians was out yesterday, Bowles was going to coach against the Jets. That would have been quite fun to watch. All right, so the other game to discuss with some detail is obviously the Ravens and Rams. The Ravens are just running into so much bad luck for the last 5 weeks with these injuries and whatnot. There's no reason why the Ravens should not have beat the Rams. Matthew Stafford has looked really bad the last few weeks, Michael. This Rams team, I don't see them doing anything in the playoffs, but, kudos to their defense the last few weeks for getting them their wins.
Yeah, I think right now, Stafford has just not been completely what he needs to be. And I don't necessarily think that it's 100% just he's sucking. I think maybe there's a little bit that has to do with that injury that we were talking about earlier in the season. But man, the Rams need to get things going quickly because this is a team that's all in on a Super Bowl. It's not like this is a team that's like, oh, we got this young foundation in place. We're going to be fine. This is a team that each passing year, they're putting it all in on Super Bowl or bust. And, second round playoffs isn't good enough for them. This is a team that has the talent. They have the ability to beat anyone any week. But then you have these weeks where you're playing the Tyler Huntley and Devonta Freeman led Ravens, and they're winning all the way up until like 40 seconds left in the game. You
Yeah.
can't have that. You're the Rams. Like you have the talent. You have the ability to be a team that can contend, and you're just not doing it. And I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a McVay issue. I don't think it's necessarily just a Stafford issue, but I do think that there are major issues that need to be fixed. And if they don't do it, then yeah, I mean, this season's a disappointment. It's not something where you can say, oh, we made playoffs, we made some promising moves, and we're ready for next year, because with each passing season, you're just kind of limiting your resources that you were already investing to winning this year.
And they won a playoff game last year with Jared Goff. So
Yeah.
you make this big trade, get up a lot of draft capital, and what are you going to have to show for it? A first-round exit? Not great. I think they'll win the playoffs, though. But, huge game in Week 18. They're taking on the 49ers. 49ers, they win and they're in. But if the 49ers win, that's probably going to likely, I would say, drop the Rams to the wild card, because I think the Cardinals will probably beat the Seahawks. So it's going to be a key matchup. Cardinals did a great job taking care of the Cowboys yesterday as well.
Yeah, the Cardinals definitely needed that victory. And it was a game where a lot of people were saying the Cowboys were going to win because the Cardinals were shorthanded. They had their injuries they were dealing with. They had some COVID protocol that was holding people out. And really, they kind of controlled the game defensively. I mean, Kyler looked solid, but he didn't absolutely blow them away or anything. The run game was just kind of mediocre. They definitely needed James Conner in that one. But, huge shout out to Christian Kirk kind of carrying the load for this offense, where DeAndre Hopkins, Rondale Moore were all out. AJ Green did well also with 3 catches for 74 yards. But ultimately, just tremendous props to this defense. Isaiah Simmons, Budda Baker, guys like that were able to kind of make these big plays and kind of slow down this Cowboys offense that was coming off a career week almost. And they still put up 22, which isn't like abysmal or anything, but still holding the Dallas offense in check while your offense is able to operate for 25 points and win the game. That's a big W, and you'll take that, especially heading into playoffs where you're trying to kind of build that momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. And next week, there's going to be a lot of bad games, but of course there'll be some ones that are crucial. But the Packers, they eliminate the Vikings last night. The Eagles, they beat Washington football team, so they're in the playoffs. Packers get the 1 seed, so I'm wondering if we're going to see Jordan Love starting next week, Michael, as the Packers take on the Lions.
Yeah, I think Rodgers is going to get probably the first quarter, if I had to guess, and then we'll see Jordan Love the rest of the way. I really think there's something cooking up with Green Bay that we could see them try to kind of make this last pitch effort to keep Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. I don't think Jordan Love has shown enough to where I'm confident in him to be the next QB. I don't know if I hold on to my GM over my quarterback when Aaron Rodgers has been playing at the level that he has.
I think if the Packers win the Super Bowl, Rodgers is going to retire. I don't think he's going to play. I think he's going to go out. I don't think his heart is in it, and where he's like Tom Brady, where he's like, I need to play till I'm 50. He already knows talent-wise he's the best quarterback of all time. He's going to the Hall of Fame. Right now, he gets that second ring. You're in rarefied air. And I think there's a strong possibility, Michael, that if they win the Super Bowl this year, he's going to step away. I think right now, I'd have to favor them to get to the Super Bowl from the NFC.
They have certainly, put up this results to believe in them. I think there's plenty of talent there. They're very well rounded on the offense, which is huge. If you need, you can rely on Aaron Jones. If you need, you can go to Devontae Adams. Rodgers is going to be able to produce with almost anyone at QB. The defense has been pretty strong. I still have a hard time counting out Brady, and I know a lot of people
You
are
can't
going
count them
to
out.
see this.
I mean, I
And just
think it's
kind of
going to
think it's
be.
because I'm Patriot. Wait, sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, I want to see Brady versus Rodgers in the NFC Championship game. So we got to hope some things fall into line here, where the Bucs can go up to the 2 seed, because we don't want to be seeing that an early round matchup between those two.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I feel like this is a weird NFC picture because I don't think the teams are bad, but like the Rams have had so many issues all year.
Yep.
The Bucs are falling apart at the seams with injuries. The Cowboys just are so flat so many times. Like they'll have great wins and then they'll just completely fall apart each game. Cardinals kind of similar story. 49ers are good, but I don't think they're there yet. I think Trey Lance era is where you can kind of see if Trey Lance kind of makes those strides and they're a contender. Eagles, I think kind of got in on getting a little bit of a favorable schedule.
Playing the Giants twice.
Yeah. So it's tough to look at this NFC and say anyone can win it when anyone can. Like we've seen teams come out of nowhere and kind of
like
make
the
their runs, but
and the Giants and the Bucs last year.
But it feels like this is a 3-4 team NFC picture. Yeah, and that's if you're kind of giving a little bit of hope to the Cardinals to kind of get back to that 9-0 type play. But it feels like it's between Packers, Rams, Bucs.
But the Packers, you got to remember, the last loss, Aaron Rodgers didn't even play. And if he played that game, they're going to beat the Chiefs by 10 to 14 points. So this team has been rolling now for 3 months. And I don't see anybody being able to stop Aaron Rodgers and Adams right now. I mean, what they are doing at this rate is just historic. Very, very Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase-like. It's just incredible. And, I don't really give any team in the AFC any shot to beat these NFC teams in the Super Bowl this year. I'd be surprised if the AFC team wins the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm kind of at as well. I think whoever comes out of the NFC probably wins it, but I feel like the AFC is deeper in terms of who could come out of the conference. So
anybody could come out.
It's going to be a crazy playoff, that's for sure. You feel like you'd think it's going to be like a Packers Bucs in the NFC Championship, which could be kind of vanilla in terms of crazy, but
it's great though.
Man, there's a lot here that I feel like any game could really result in a chaos result, and we've seen it all season, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of it come playoff time.
I'm going to give the Cardinals an okay shot to get to the Super Bowl. That's because I think if he's healthy, people have a lot of problems with Kyler Murray. They cannot contain him, so he could just take over a game. But right now, my tier 1, I got the Packers and the Bucs. That's it. I think it's got to be one of those two teams come out of the NFC. The AFC, I would say anybody can make it, but it's going to be pretty wild to see how that shakes out. Interested to see that. But last week, only one more week of Rochman's Rookies of the Week, which would be next week. But who made it for Week 17?
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the graphic put together, but I do have the Rochman's Rookies of the Week for this week. And, first starting out with Zach Jones, Zach Wilson. I apologize. Very promising performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I know he didn't have this absolutely star-studded stat line, but 19 for 33, 234 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. He was able to avoid contact all game. I think this was a very strong performance. I know that the Jets ended up losing it. They ended up having their struggles at the end, but Zach Wilson looked very good against a very good defense. And if you're a Jets fan, that's what you want to see. I think this is extremely promising for the future of the Jets. Salah's a very good coach in my mind. I think they have a very simple offense to help out Wilson as he develops along. There's plenty of promise here, and Zach Wilson gets the first nod. Next guy on this list is Mack Jones, 22 for 30 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 227 yards and 3 touchdowns. Just an absolute dominant performance for Mack Jones and the Patriots. Obviously, a lot of this game went on the ground. Ramondre Stevenson probably deserves to be on here as well with 19 carries, 107 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They were just running all over the Jaguars. It was a completely uneven matchup. And I think that's huge for the Patriots to kind of get their confidence going as they head into this final week before the playoff situation. They play Dolphins next week and then playoffs start, obviously. But tremendous matchup. Defense looked good. Offense looked good. Mac Jones, though, going to be huge for the Patriots if they truly want to contend. Rookie quarterback, never won the Super Bowl before. I'm not saying it's going to happen now, but Patriots have a lot of the right pieces in place that they could very easily contend sooner rather than later. And, it's been a while for New England, but I think, eventually they could get back in there.
Yeah.
The next rookie of the week, you knew it was coming. Like, there was no way I could make this list. Honestly, I probably should have just made this list, this whole graphic, and just had this guy alone. Jamar Chase, 11 receptions, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns at the wide receiver spot. Absolutely dominant. Helped the Bengals victory over the Chiefs. Just tremendous. I mean, the Bengals are one of the hottest teams in football in my mind. And really, it comes from being able to look at Joe Burrow and look at Jamar Chase and what they've been able to accomplish together. T. Higgins, opposite Jamar Chase, has been phenomenal. Tyler Boyd, very underrated in the slot. There's just so much talent here on this offense, and they took so much crap for not drafting offensive line because a lot of people assumed that it was just a must-do. They said, oh, the offensive line is an issue. They have to invest everything they can into the offensive line. And look, if they had Sewell on this team, it'd be a good pick. I'm not saying that would have been bad to pick Sewell, but picking Jamar Chase was obviously worth it, and he has been an absolute superstar for the Bengals and is going to be an absolute superstar for years to come as long as he stays healthy.
And do you remember in the preseason, everyone was talking like, oh, this guy's going to be a bust. Like, he's not ready for the NFL. What a joke.
Yeah, I didn't trust Zach Taylor. I thought the Bengals were a year away, and maybe they're a year away from contending, but I thought they were like a year away from being a competitive team. And man, they proved me wrong. They're still a little bit inconsistent. They have some games where they come out flat, but they've really unlocked this offense, unleashed Joe Burrow, and he has been making so many great throws. And man, it's just fun to watch. This is a very fun team, very young team, very easy to root for. And I'm excited to see what the Bengals' future looks like, especially with Jamar Chase leading the way in the wide receiver room.
So Zach Taylor, I'm not to sidetrack us here too, but Zach Taylor, the Bengals, they stuck with him for year 3. It obviously paid off. I'm trying to draw some parallels here to the Giants to see what the deal is going to be with Joe Judge, because all the reports are Mara and Tish love Joe Judge. But this team is so atrocious on the field right now. Joe Judge went on a rant after the game yesterday saying, oh, they're a great team, the Bears. We were ready for them, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what they're going to do here. But if they bring in a new GM, I think he should be allowed to clean house with the quarterback and the coach. What would you do in the Giants scenario here? Because it's a disaster. I think despite their record, I think they are the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah, I think I would probably keep Joe Judge at least one more year. But looking around at the QB position, I couldn't roll with Daniel Jones again. And I'm not sure that I go into the draft looking for my quarterback, but I think I really put up these 2 top 10 picks. And I say, look, if you're wanting your future and you're willing to part with your quarterback, we're the team that's willing to do it. Yeah. There is still some holes on this roster. There is still some issues that need to be fixed for the Giants outside of QB, but I can't trust that Daniel Jones is going to lead me to that next step. And I think there's plenty of pieces on this roster to where if you add an Aaron Rodgers, if you add a Deshaun Watson, if you add a Russell Wilson, there is a huge turnaround in store for this team. I know health has been a big issue. Keeping Sterling Shepard on the field, keeping Saquon on the field, keeping Kenny Galladay on the field. But I think this team is a quick fix type of roster rather than a team that needs a full overhaul or a full rebuild. And that's why, with the opportunity to offer up 2 top 10 picks, I'm looking for a quarterback with it. And I'm not necessarily looking for a rookie QB who's going to take a few years to get kind of along with the rest of your roster that's already kind of ready to compete as it is. You got Blake Martinez coming back. You got some good pieces on this defense. I think there is plenty of opportunity to contend as long as you get a QB that is up to the caliber to kind of lift the rest of this roster up with him rather than kind of anchor it down a bit. No offense to Daniel Jones.
So, I mean, obviously I want Wilson or I want Rodgers, but I'd be happy with them giving me Mitch Trubisky. This guy went to the playoffs twice. I mean, he stays healthy. Bring his offensive coordinator with him, and Brian Dabble. Let them run the team. I don't understand why nobody wants to sign Marcus Mariota to start. I think he's an upgrade too, because I think that's a path the Giants should explore. Go for one of those type of guys. You could draft maybe the top offensive lineman, and you're going to draft a top 3 defensive lineman, and with those top 2 picks, that's talk about a way to turn around a team and give it a jolt. But listen, I think they should move on from Judge. I think they need to 100% move on from Jones. And I don't know who's going to be the GM of the Giants. The reports are saying the assistant GM from the Bills perhaps may be the top candidate. So maybe if that's the case, you do see Dabble come. You do see Trubisky come. Giants and Jets are going to be the story of the offseason, that's for sure, because they're going to have 4 top 5, top 6 picks. It's crazy.
Yeah, right now, this would be the first time that 2 teams have occupied half the top 8, assuming that the draft order sticks. So there is plenty of potential for a lot of craziness to happen whenever this draft starts. There is, so much control by 2 teams that, either we're going to see just a tremendous turnaround, or we're going to see a big trade. And, even the Eagles are kind of in the mix of having 3 first-round picks right now. So there's a lot of teams that have ammunition to make a move. I mean, the Eagles have been rumored to potentially still be in that QB market. Hurts has played pretty solid, but, are you saying if you're the Eagles that you're absolutely not interested in a guy like Russell Wilson if the Seahawks come calling and say, look, we want Hurts and 3 firsts? I think that's something that they would still definitely entertain, especially Howie Roseman, who loves his QBs and wants to make it happen. So very much still in play for plenty of chaos. And I think, this QB carousel type offseason is really going to be one for the books.
And last season, there was so much moving around. So, we'll see. I'm looking forward to everything with the draft. Sam Howell declared for the draft. Is he going to be a first-round pick? I don't know. I mean, going into the season, he was going to be. I don't know, Michael. We might only see 2 QBs drafted in the first round, I think.
Yeah, there's plenty of options out there. There's love for guys like Pickett, Corral, Willis, Howell, obviously. And there's talk of other guys. But really, ultimately, I think we're going to see Willis as a first-round pick, I think, because he has a lot of the tools that can lead to a lot of confidence for teams. 23 years old, so he's a little bit older, but I still think there's plenty of potential there. Corral, obviously, with the injury, that hurts, but I think he's still fine. And it was said that his injury wasn't too bad, so he should be good to kind of come into the situation and really kind of own this offseason and determine where his stock's going to be. I like Howell. I think he's a guy that you kind of draft if you're a team like Pittsburgh and Washington and you go the draft route. I think that's a guy that you kind of target because I think he is someone that's going to be a little bit safer and kind of keep you in a good spot at the QB spot, especially with a good supporting cast around him. But ultimately, there's a lot of chaos with this QB position. We've been talking about all season where we said, there's teams that will probably look at someone as a first-round pick that other teams are saying we are not drafting that guy because we don't think he is going to do anything in the NFL. So a lot of variance on opinions, a lot of probably just scrambled QB rankings amongst all 32 front offices. There is plenty of intrigue, though, and as we kind of get more clarity throughout the course of the year, as we get opportunities like the Senior Bowl or the Combine or Pro Days, we will be here at Destination Draft Day to really kind of provide our thoughts and analysis and hopefully some accurate guesstimations on how this QB draft order will unfold as we get closer to draft day in April.
Yeah. Now, Michael, you obviously work for our website, which covers the Texas Longhorns. What is the feeling down there in Texas where the Longhorns had a horrible season under Sarkisian year one? Meanwhile, their main in-state rivals, Texas A&M, are adding to what is already the top draft class in the country, the top recruiting class in the country. Is Texas A&M making a big move here? Like, are we going to be seeing them competing in the next 3 years for a national title? It sure looks like it.
Yeah, I mean, Texas A&M was a team we talked about as a potential contender this offseason. And the injury to the quarterback, Haynes King, was devastating for them. It kind of derailed their season. But I still think there's plenty of talent on this roster. And, with the tremendous recruiting class coming, there's plenty of upside for them to be a contender for years to come. I think Texas has done a nice job of kind of bouncing back from a 5-7 season, adding Quinn Ewers in the transfer portal, having Xavier Worthy, adding some good pieces to the coaching staff, and getting a pretty good recruiting class, top 5, I believe, in the nation. I think there's plenty of upside, though. Texas A&M, they added Wigman, who is going to be a highly touted QB as he enters this college landscape, and we'll see if he really kind of transitions to the college football world. Obviously, there's plenty of high recruits that maybe don't work out at the college level, but A&M seems to be building a very solid foundation. Jimbo Fisher has done a good job building up that program, building momentum with the recruiting class, and I think there's reason to believe both programs, Texas and Texas A&M, could eventually kind of get things started, propelling up to a new level.
Yeah.
And Texas A&M definitely has the lead right now.
Michael. I mean, Oklahoma. They have Spencer Rattler. They replaced him with Caleb Williams, and now they're both leaving as Caleb Williams has entered the transfer portal. Caleb Williams is going to be a highly sought after. What's the deal here with Riley leaving? Are they going to have to sit out a year, or they're going to be automatically allowed to play next season? And where do you think Rattler is going to end up? Because I think you were so high on him before the season, and ultimately things just didn't work for him. But now it looks like, from what I'm seeing, it looks like Caleb Williams is going to enter the transfer portal as well. Is he going to go to USC? I don't know.
Yeah, that's some. I didn't realize that just happened, and that is ridiculous. Just in terms of momentum, not ridiculous on his decision. I respect that college players can open their opportunities in the transfer portal, but really, just immediate thoughts. I'm kind of thinking, there's opportunities for him to find a place that if he feels like he can contend elsewhere, then maybe there is that chance. And right now I look at Caleb Williams at Oklahoma. There's potential there, sure. Brett Venables is a very good coach. I think Oklahoma still has some pretty solid pieces in place. But I look around at other programs, maybe Notre Dame, that really was very close to getting into that playoff picture. They've been kind of held back from their QB spot. Maybe Caleb Williams could go there. You look around at some other places. Michigan State, Mel Tucker just had a very tremendous season with transfer portal. If they can get a QB that kind of helps elevate the offense, then maybe they could contend in the Big Ten and maybe even contend for a national title. LSU is another program that I think would be very much in the mix, and USC, as you said, as well. So there's going to be plenty of options for Caleb Williams. A lot of teams are definitely going to make it known to him that they are willing to maybe upset their current starting QB and really bring him in. So he's probably not going to be one of those guys that's tweeting out like, oh, blessed to receive an offer in the transfer portal from, because there's going to be some programs that are saying, look, we want you really badly, but let's keep this under wraps because we don't want to upset our current starter if you don't decide to come here.
A lot of NIL money going to be included there. All right, we got a few minutes left here, so we'll talk about real quick the national championship game, as most predicted. Is going to be Alabama, Georgia. I don't know, Michael. I think it's bad for the sport when we got two teams from the same conference scoring off multiple times for a championship. I don't know. There's no parity here in college football. It's so clear that the top tier of the SEC is so far above better than anybody else in the country. Um, two games that were not good at all on New Year's Eve, and we'll see what happens here. It's a rematch. I know you're favoring Georgia. I'm going to favor Alabama. We'll give our picks next week, the day of the game. But yeah, I'm curious to see how the ratings are here. I know they'll be huge in SEC country, but wonder how play out across the rest of the country.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning Bama again. It's just
changing your mind.
Yeah, I trust the Georgia defense to do better, but I don't trust Kirby Smart to make the change at QB. I think Stetson Bennett's going to be the QB all game, and I don't think the offense is going to get going well enough. You just can't do that against a high-powered offense of Alabama, against a high-powered defense of the Crimson Tide. And I don't mean to disrespect Stetson Bennett. I don't mean to disrespect Georgia, but you got to make that change and kind of throw in a little bit of surprise. You got to have a QB that's going to be able to make better plays. You need Caleb Williams on your team to at least have that upside to make plays downfield, make plays with the legs, extend the offense. And right now they just don't have that. So, actually, if Caleb Williams goes to Georgia next year, I do think they would be probably one of the favorites to win it all. I think that would be a huge addition. They were rumored to be in on Quinn Ewers, so that's a possibility there. But ultimately, though, just a lot of what seems like complacency with Stetson Bennett running this offense, and I don't like that for the odds of the Bulldogs in the national championship, especially going against the Nick Saban that has just consistently done it.
I know you love that Rose Bowl. I mean, that was crazy. So I want to ask you now, heading into next year, in the preseason rankings, is Ohio State going to be higher than Michigan?
I think so. I think, just commonly, you're going to lean to the power programs to kind of regain their spots. And while Michigan beat Ohio State, they're losing pieces like Aiden Hutchinson, David Ojabo, Daxton Hill, all probably going to the NFL. So I think the favor will lead to Ohio State, especially with the momentum they built in that Rose Bowl, which, by the way, if Cameron Rising doesn't get hurt, I think Utah wins. But I think Ohio State has the momentum for next year in terms of returning players, so they'll be higher when the rankings come.
Imagine your first pass in college is a touchdown pass in the Rose Bowl. I mean,
shout out to Barnes. He looked pretty promising. I mean, for a guy that was a walk-on QB playing his first game against Ohio State in a huge bowl game, he didn't look too bad. So shout out to Barnes, and just good on him. Hopefully he can build something from it.
All right, last thing I want to ask you heading into next year is, what can we expect from Clemson? Or are we going to see them back in the top 4 next year?
I think that comes down to what happens at quarterback. DJ Uiagalelei has not really kind of met expectations. The defense is there. The offense still needs some help. The wide receiver unit wasn't as developed as a lot of people were kind of expecting. But Cade Klubnik comes in as one of the highly touted freshmen for the season. So I think he's going to put the pressure on DJ, and we'll see what happens. I think there's potential that Klubnik wins that job, kind of similar to how Trevor Lawrence won that job from Kelly Bryant, where, at first DJ is a starter, and then as the season goes on, the Clemson Tigers kind of move on to the hot freshman phenom if he plays well enough. But, Clemson has the talent. They've proven it time and time again. They've been one of the teams that can contend with the SEC teams, but the offense needs to be there. And right now, with the current state that it was this season, it just absolutely is not.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be interesting.
All right, well, that is all we have for you here on Destination Draft Day. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you to ChrisLandryFootball.com for the platform to stream off of. Destination Draft Day, your one-stop shop for NFL draft, NFL talk, and college football. We'll be here back on Friday, and we'll see you then. Take care, guys.